Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi here. Thursday, March 1st, 2018. Already the first 2 months of the year done. We are incredibly busy. Yes, Shelly Man Studios. I appreciate the fact that you've noticed that, yes, I not only got my hair cut, I got them all cut, and my colorist just dyes my gray in perfectly. It's amazing. Got a busy night tonight. We've got two big storms on two continents to talk about, and we're going to get to both of them. I am going to first start with Europe, Ireland, and England because you guys are at 11 o'clock your time, and I think you may want to go Betty by soon. So I'm going to handle your end of it first. Now, I just spoke to a high school friend of mine who is in Ireland right now, and she was in Dublin yesterday and now up in Tipperary, and she just messaged me a little while ago that it is been snowing very hard there. I've also had a friend of mine send me a picture from near Dublin where they've had blizzard conditions in some places, anywhere from half a foot to a foot of snow from all these streamers. Basically the streamers that have been coming in from the North Sea, and now we're going to be dealing with this storm that's coming up from the south. I really wish I had the European model on the European side to be able to look at what that model is doing with all this, but here's the GFS. There's the storm sitting just to the east of the west coast of France, a 972 low, and you'll notice snow, solid snow coverage, southwestern England into looks like parts of Wales and all of Ireland getting snow here with this really, really cold air that streamed in from Siberia. You've got high pressure sitting over Scandinavia, and this screaming east wind, surface and aloft, just driving moisture westward, so they're getting pounded. Also getting some snow and blizzard conditions up in Scotland. Now, here's how we'll play it out on the GFS, and that low rotates up and around, and you can see another arm of snow coming in to southern England during the day on Friday and gradually moving northward. Looks like the area weakens a bit as it moves northward, but you're kind of getting these spokes of moisture until the low center plays itself out, and it's just going to take forever. Now, eventually, warmer air is going to come in on this from the south as the low moves northward over Ireland. So your days of continuous cold and snow are numbered, but you're going out in a very big way with all of this with this storm system. Like they're calling it Storm Emma, and snow amounts in the next 24 hours. I think it's probably pretty fair to show the 10-to-1 ratio, but I've got the snow map up. This is, of course, all front-end loaded, but just go back to the point where at least this will encompass whatever falls between now and into Saturday. So I just pushed it back to the map into Monday morning, so you have it all, and you can see the snowfall totals are excessive in some places in southern Ireland. In excess of 20 centimeters. I mean, it's really amazing. Less as you go to the north, excessive snow amounts on top of what has already fallen in southwestern England, and heavy amounts going all the way up through northern England and into Scotland. And of course, it's going to be elevation driven as well. So Storm Emma coming in, doing its thing, and then once that plays out, you should finally at least start to warm things up to something a little bit more reasonable as you move into early next week. Now, let's come back home and take a look at what's going on, because the eastern U.S. at the moment is basically lit up like a Christmas tree in terms of the watches and warnings. And then we're going to come back, and we're going to go over the NAM model, and we're going to go over the HRRR and the GFS, and I'll get into why the models are differing the way they are. But first off, let me just come back and take a look at what's going on. We're going to start with the radar. I want to show you the east radar here on the regional radar, and this is as of 6:05 Eastern Time. Now, you have two areas of rain. The area of rain that is now covering all of Pennsylvania back through West Virginia and back through Ohio. That is part of the primary low, the low that came out of Texas and Oklahoma that is now moving through central Ohio. That primary low is dying out, and the beginnings of the secondary low are developing, and you can see that on the radar with the kind of disorganized looking rain that's down through southern Virginia and North Carolina. So this is from this, we are seeing the beginnings of that secondary low. And the key to the snow forecast out of all of this, because this is all going to be driven by the upper air dynamics. Obviously, there's not a lot of cold air around at all, and nor will there be. So we're going to have to do it based on the dynamics in the upper atmosphere just going crazy and bringing cold air from the top down, and definitely going to have success with that, where you see these winter storm warnings up. Okay, now we've got winter storm warnings up in the east, northeastern, and northern Pennsylvania. So I'm thinking basically along or north of Route 80. We have winter storm warning up for Sussex County in northwest New Jersey, Orange County on the New York side, and then up through the Catskills, all the way up along and west of 87, westward through all of the rest of New York State. Then, again, because of elevation driving all this, you got this little narrow sliver of winter weather advisories as you go closer to the Massachusetts border, and then the winter storm warnings come up again for parts of northwestern Connecticut, western Massachusetts, and southern Vermont. Watches are up for parts of southwestern New Hampshire at the moment, and you notice that there's a large gap, and then there's another winter storm warning that's up for one of the counties more into east central Massachusetts. That must be topography. That's got to be topography driven. And the yellow representing the yellow and the brown, that's all either high wind warnings or wind advisories, and those go all the way down into the southeastern part of the United States, down into South Carolina and Georgia. We have flood watches that are up over parts of eastern Tennessee, and also we have flood watches up for areas from eastern Pennsylvania on up through southern New England. So busy in terms of the watches and warnings. Coastal flood watches and warnings mainly run from Delaware all the way up into southeastern New England. And we've already had some coastal flood warnings posted for the Jersey Shore and for parts of the Long Island South Shore. It's not just the high tides tomorrow, but it's also the high tides on Saturday, because this storm is going to be lingering off the mid-Atlantic coast. Even though it's going to be pretty far out, it's going to be out there for a couple of days, and that's going to continue to create tidal problems. We've got the full moon tonight as well. In the west, we also have a winter storm underway with the winter storm warnings over much of northeastern California, and of course in the interior in the mountains, northeastern California and northwestern California, which you don't see too often, and southwestern Oregon. Also warnings up for northeastern Nevada, northern Utah, watches up scattered throughout the other parts of the state. We've got advisories up in eastern Idaho and into Montana, winter storm warnings up for a portion of south central Idaho, and then back over into northwestern Oregon and northwestern Washington. So both coasts, it's like we basically have three coasts that are getting major winter storms all at the same time. And let's come back to the east. Now here, I'm going to show you, this will take me a second. I'm going to bring up my snow forecast map, and I'm going to tell you guys right off the bat, I am going to be wrong in a lot of... I knew when I drew this, by the way. This is not a sudden revelation to me. I had decided today that from what I've been seeing, being really, really impressed with the strength of this system that's coming into the eastern part of the United States. The model differences are actually relatively simple, okay? And let me show you. I'm trying to save my snow map here. I just got to do a couple of steps, so it'll just take me a moment. Where'd you go? Okay, here we go. I'm sorry, just a little bit of technical hang up here. So let's get an image up, and I'll bring up my snow forecast map. If I can find it. Snow 0301. There we go. Got it. Okay, so here's what I did. I'm banking on the NAM, and actually to some degree also the high resolution RGEP model. But this is what I came up with, and I'm either going to be very right or very wrong for what I have drawn along the coast. I didn't go for a lot here. I'm talking about maybe a slushy 1 to 3 inches for coastal New Jersey on up into over New York City and up into southeastern New York, Westchester County, over into Connecticut. Trying to figure out where the zone is going to be in terms of warm air sweeping in from the east. How far west is that warm air going to get? Is it going to get to I-91? Is it going to get to the Connecticut-New York line? Is it going to get to the Hudson River? I don't know. So I had to kind of roll the dice and make a decision. I have this kind of large area where I put in anywhere from 3 to 8 inches. I don't usually like to put wide ranges, but you know what? It's going to be elevation driven. You're going to have valleys that get nothing. If you're near sea level, or in some of these areas, you may get nothing or a coating or very little. And if you have elevation in your areas that go up to 500 or 1,000 feet or more, you're going to get several to many inches, depending on how the dynamics work out. And then I went for basically 8 to 12 Northwest Jersey. So anywhere where I have the winter storm warning up, I went for at least 8 to 12. And then you get into upstate New York, and we're talking 12 to 18. Now, what am I banking on? Okay, well, we'll look at the NAM, because really what it boils down to is there's that low in Ohio. We are on the first frame is 3 o'clock this is 4 o'clock this afternoon. Okay, there's your low, and that's your primary low. We are waiting for that primary low to die out and the secondary low to redevelop. And if you look carefully where this yellow patch is near the bottom of the screen, the small yellow patch, not the one that looks like a line, but the one that's just got this cluster of yellow. If you look carefully, there is a closed isobar there. That is the secondary low that is developing. The storm systems basically have a life cycle. This one is occluding out, and they usually like to do that west of the Appalachians. They occlude out, and they throw their energy to a secondary low on the other side. And the NAM is suggesting that this secondary low takes over very quickly. If you look here for, this is midnight tonight, the primary low is just about gone. The secondary low is now taking over, and that becomes the main system and intensifies. The reason why this is important, the rapid intensification of the secondary low, is that it causes cold air, surface and aloft, to basically wrap around the system, and it wraps around the system faster than the other models do. And you can see the end result on that is when we get to tomorrow morning, this is at 8 a.m., the changeover to snow that's taking place across northeastern Pennsylvania, much of southeastern New York, north of Route 84, and about to change in northern New Jersey. And then that cold air gets drained all the way south, so you start to see the model showing these patches of blue. In the meantime, notice that you've got rain that is in eastern New England westward toward western Mass and western Connecticut. In a sense, there's an upside downness to this storm, okay? And that happens occasionally in situations like this. You have warm air that brings rain to areas north and northeast, and the snow is west and south of the low center, okay? Because of how the upper air is structured and the fact that you're having warm air that's sweeping in from the east. It's upside down from what it usually is. So while much of interior New England tomorrow may be raining, much of eastern Pennsylvania and northwestern New Jersey could be snowing. And the key for the coast is this coastal low, which by tomorrow morning is a wrapped up animal and just sitting there. And you can see the NAM has snow basically from New York City westward, brings it into Long Island later in the afternoon into tomorrow evening, and then gradually the storm starts to wind down, at least as far as precip is concerned. By Saturday morning, it's all but done. The HRRR model does not go out far enough, but it does match up pretty well with the NAM's idea, and that is that the primary low there in western Pennsylvania dies out rather quickly, and then the secondary low begins to take over. I don't have, the HRRR model, this is only through 6 a.m. Notice, by the way, very heavy rains going on at this point across northeastern New Jersey, New York City into Long Island and the lower Hudson Valley. The snow is just about getting ready to get drawn, the cold air just about getting ready to be drawn southward. This is going to be very fascinating to see. And, at the end of the day, the snow part of the equation to me probably is a little less important than the coastal flooding and the winds, because winds are going to be a big player here. I'll put the wind field on. The wind is not going to be a big issue overnight. You start to see some sustained winds to gale force along the south shore of Long Island on the HRRR, and on the run right before this, as we can go out a little bit further in time. So this is at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. You're getting sustained winds of 30 to 40 knots in eastern Suffolk County and along the New Jersey shore as well. And also notice the strong winds, the strong northwest winds that are going to be blowing across Chesapeake Bay, down along in southern southeastern Virginia and coastal North Carolina. These are sustained winds of 30 to 40 knots. So you got to figure they're going to be gusts 50 to 60. I would not be surprised if you get some really strong gusty wind numbers tomorrow in the 50 to 60 mile an hour range during from later. For my area at least, it'll be probably from the strongest winds are going to be from mid-morning through into Friday night, and particularly later Friday afternoon into Friday evening. That'll be the strongest period as far as the winds are concerned. The NAM wind field, because we can go out a little bit further than that, than the HRRR. Look at these winds that it's forecasting across southeastern New England and around the Boston area. We're talking sustained winds of 40 to 50 knots from southeastern Maine all the way down into, actually that's southwestern Maine, all the way down into Cape Cod, back over to Block Island, Nantucket, Long Island. There are going to be some pretty fierce winds going on here. And look at those big winds on the NAM too as we go into Friday afternoon along the New Jersey coast to the south shore of Long Island. Just crazy. And the purple, by the way, is 50 to 60 knots. Now that's offshore, but that's coming at a point where that low center is beginning to drop southward. You don't see that too often here. It's the blocking pattern that's doing all this in terms of the movement. The storm would want to go northeastward, but it just can't, and it can't go northward because of the big block to the north, and the block is strengthening, so it's actually forcing the low to drop southward. It's something we don't see very often, and by the way, that block is going to play a big role going forward as far as the longer range pattern is concerned. If you're just joining us, let me just bring up my snow map again, and you can take a look at this. Is what I'm going for. I said earlier, if you missed it, that I have a pretty good chance of being wrong through much of coastal New York, Long Island, and through Connecticut. By the way, there's the possibility if that cold air gets more important that You know, I could be way wrong and too low particularly for northwestern Connecticut. So, but it's just so tough. You know, this is so hard to forecast in a situation like this when you're dealing with temperatures that spent the day in the mid to upper 50s, and now you're talking about snow and dynamic cooling when you don't have the cold air to begin with, and you don't have a really strong supply of cold air behind it. So it's a dice roll. But if you don't get that, you're going to get heavy rain, and you're going to get, you know, these very strong winds. So you know, if the snow winds up not playing out, I would think that most people would not be overly upset over this. Okay. Let me, at this point, go a little wider, so we'll carry you through the rest of the forecast period. I want to show you what the long-term pattern is, because it does look to me like this is going to have a couple of follow-ups and repeat players here in the longer term. So back in the west, here's the system. Let me go back 24 hours because we have this system coming in now. So this system now coming into the coast in the west. You can see the low in the east. You see how the isobar is bagged down into Virginia, North Carolina. That's where the secondary is going to develop. And again, how fast that secondary intensifies and takes over is going to be key. If you're watching from the New York, New Jersey area and Long Island, let me just put it this way: if you're in a coastal location and you start seeing mixing occurring sometime during tomorrow morning, that's probably a sign that my forecast may work out. If it's still raining through mid and late afternoon, then it may get a little more dicey. If you're inland, I think you're going to see your changeover of snow happen during the morning hours. If that happens, I think my forecast, which is not that out of line from what the Weather Service is forecasting in areas to the north and northwest, should work out pretty well. All right, so let's go forward here. I haven't looked at this GFS run, so I'm looking at it with you for the first time as well. But there's that low coming into the west, and it's going to redevelop east of the Rockies there. You can see low pressure in eastern Colorado with some snows in western Colorado, Utah, up into Montana. That low is going to try to go northward, but you can see what happens when it hits the block. All right, let me back it up, and I'll show you again. The natural progression to go northeast, it hits the block, and suddenly the low turns east-southeast. You've got a huge high building up in through eastern and southeastern Canada that's trying to push down the east coast. It's forcing that low to go southeastward and dies out, redevelops. There's a redeveloping low east of the Delmarva Peninsula. This is next Tuesday night into Wednesday, and we do have something similar to what we have now. I haven't given it a close look. Nothing ever plays out exactly the same, but it does rhyme. And then we have a third system that tries to dive southeastward and makes yet another storm. This is about the fourth model run in a row where it's done this, by the way. And this is for Sunday, March 11th. And then that pulls out, and then it looks like it wants to break that block down, and that's why it sweeps that cold front through toward the end of the period. I didn't really look at the upper air, so let me punch that up for you. Looks like maybe the block does break a little bit, so let me go back. We'll show you what's going on now. Do you love running the atmosphere backwards? But here we go. So there's your big blocking high building and moving westward across Greenland, forcing our system here in the east to explode where it is. Then the block sits there, and while the upper high weakens, it doesn't completely disappear. And here's the next system. As again, it's forced to go southeastward to the coast. Not a bad looking trough there. We're going to have to see if it winds up being a repeat performance. And then here's the next one behind that. And then it looks like, we get a bit of a breakdown. But still amazing how this trough in the west doesn't want to go away. It just, these troughs lately in the western part of the United States, even though the models in the long range have occasionally tried to do that, they have been so sorely wrong. I want to go back to. Let's pull up various models here in terms of their snow. Excuse me, their snowfall maps. Back into the Northeast. And now here's the problem. It's I'm going to show you the 10-to-1 ratio. You know what? In some places up north and upstate New York, it might be, but boy, the NAM is showing that little finger of 1 foot snows in northwest New Jersey. That's if every drop of precip falls as snow and sticks. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the positive snow growth map is probably the better tool here. And you notice it does show much less as far as total snowfall is concerned. It's got a band of 12-inch plus snows. Now, I think this could be underdone, what you're seeing in upstate New York. I think that could very well be underdone. What's to the south could be overdone. But I'm kind of hoping that this is what we get, because this matches up almost perfectly, not quite perfectly, but it matches up fairly decently with my snowfall idea, although I would probably miss out on what I'm predicting for Connecticut and into Massachusetts. I have that area pinned a little bit further to the west. That is the NAM 12 kilometer. We'll go to the NAM 3 kilometer. And, similar idea. It does bring snow down through all of New Jersey and Long Island, coating to a couple of inches. Then you get these pockets of heavier snows as you go northwest. I think they'll be elevation driven. And then you get the bigger snows as you find your way up through the Catskills westward into western New York. And I think this area may be very well underdone. The HRRR is not going to go out far enough, but obviously it's only going to go out into tomorrow morning. So I'll pull that up for you, and you can. This is as the last frame on this is 11 o'clock tomorrow. So it would have had accumulating snow. This is positive snow growth, by the way, on the HRRR. So it would suggest that at least in these areas the snow is sticking. Northwest New Jersey, Hudson Valley north of 84, northeastern Pennsylvania. Again, this is only through 11 o'clock tomorrow, 11 a.m. You still have all afternoon and tomorrow, the first part of tomorrow night, to add to all this. I'm curious at the 10-to-1 on the HRRR. And you can see how much more aggressive the HRRR is regarding that. Rainfall being a big deal too, and at least through 11 o'clock tomorrow morning already some 2-inch plus amounts in some places, so every bit of an inch and a half to maybe 2 inches in some areas in total liquids through 11 o'clock in the morning. The NAM total rainfall is pretty aggressive here. Total precip at least 2 to 3 inches for New Jersey, southern New England, Long Island, and the Hudson Valley. So, if these liquid amounts verify, some of that's going to fall as snow in those inland areas. Somebody's going to get clobbered. There's going to be I can envision this, hearing about places that are 1,000 feet above sea level just getting, hammered with snow, and then somebody nearby who's maybe 100 feet or 50 feet above sea level has got barely a coating. It's going to be that kind of scenario. And the GFS, just to check their rainfall amounts, a little bit less, but still, every bit of a few inches of total rainfall. And by the way, because the GFS and the European holds on to this primary longer and before the secondary explodes, and that really is the reason. You see how the low by morning is still stretched out and it's oriented northeast, south, northwest, southeast. It's still holding on to the residual elements of the primary in that stretching of how the energy is still getting, pulling it back a bit. And rather than having a more circular low, or maybe something that's more oriented, say east-west or northeast-southwest, this is the issue. One of these models is going to be right on the secondary taking over fast enough or not, and that is going to be, again, the driver with regards to total snow. And just real fast, I'll bring up the west. We can take a look at the western U.S. and see what kind of snow is being forecast out there. And I'll use the 10 to 1 because I think that's probably pretty fair. Here we go. Loading up. And sorry for the delay, folks. Round and round it goes. And this is actually through Saturday morning, so you can see a large area here gets quite a bit of snow. I'll bring it out into early next week, and you can see accumulating snow is expanding throughout much of the plains and into the upper Midwest. A lot of fun, isn't it? Let me come back to the board. I want to say, by the way, right off the bat, oh, you know what, real fast, too, before we even do that, I can bring up the Weather Service's map here. They did raise their amounts a bit, going for an inch or less near the coast. I would be happy if this turns out okay. 1 to 2, 2 to 3, you start going inland, and then you start to see these pockets of 4, 5, and 6-inch amounts or higher. So if the Weather Service's forecast turns out to be okay, I'll turn out. I'll be happy with it. The outcome from the snow standpoint. I'm coming up to you guys here on the board, and I'll take a few questions. Let me just say thank you very much to Eric P., Fallen Angel, Kevin Francis, and Joyce Mack. You've all hit Super Chat tonight, and I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'm just going to run through some of your thoughts and questions. Full moon, Rad Chick, yes, full moon, tide surge, and depending on the wind direction too, not good for those on the coast. They've already got coastal flood warnings up now for the high tides coming in this evening, and this thing hasn't even gotten started yet. This is basically on what's going on with just the fact that we have the full moon tonight. So when we start to add the storm and the wind to the equation tomorrow and Saturday, these tides, it's going to be multiple tide cycles. We will probably still be having tidal flooding going on Sunday. Joshua Pan, climate models hold that block for 3 weeks. Yeah, I mean, certainly for the next 2, and we're going to get some more chances that may look something like this. I don't know if it'll be as intense as this, but there are going to be more chances. Winter storms are not done yet by any means. And of course, Patricia Owens, wind is going to cause power outages for sure, especially in areas that get to some of that heavy wet snow. I would not be shocked at all to see that. Coastal flooding right now forecast to be moderate, but I wonder, depending on how the low shapes up, there might be some pockets of major coastal flooding during the high tides Friday into Friday night. It's going to depend on the position of the low and the wind direction. I think Long Island right now probably, and southern New England, is more vulnerable to this than New Jersey is, and to Delaware, because the winds will be going northerly, and that tends to be a bit more favorable for Jersey Shore, the Jersey Shore, as opposed to up where I am in places to the east that'll probably be dealing with east and northeast and gradually, eventually going to the northeast and north, but it's going to take some time. Gary Vestas is going to the Catskills. Yes, you are. You're going to get your snow. Joyce Mack, you're asking a lot. This storm is imminent, not going to go away. Anthony Orr, on the radar, show me. We can see the beginnings of the secondary yet. Is that development faster or slower than models? I have to look at a surface plot. I haven't had time to do that. I'm going to try and do that on my break in a little while. It's at the very least, it matches up pretty well with the NAM at this point. So it's really what happens tonight with the redeveloping low that is going to be key to the snow. England, Moscow, Shanghai, Tokyo, Joshua Pan. You can add Rome and Egypt to that equation. So, it's been that kind of a year. I'm just trying to run through. I plow in North Jersey, but living in Albany was hoping no snow for Jersey. This is original P53, so I could hit this heavy snow nearby. the snow forecast, as I said earlier, original. It is it's very tenuous with what I'm going for, and I'm just gonna have. I'm not gonna change it at this point. I'm just gonna let the dice roll, and we'll see how it plays. Joyce Mack, am I coming up for an update tonight? You know what? Tonight I am actually not doing my usual drive, so I might, if I'm not exhausted, I'll do a live. I could do a live stream tonight at 11 o'clock, and we could go over what the new models are showing for tomorrow and for tomorrow night. So yeah, maybe I'll do a live stream tonight at 11 o'clock Eastern time. Can we please the RPM, Joshua Penn? You know what, buddy? I'm running out of time now because I have to hit an extra live update coming up shortly. So I'll try and remember. Will remind me tonight. I'll try and do it then. Toledo, Ohio, east of Interstate 75, calling for 3 to 6 inches with high wind advisories near the lake and gusts 45 to 50. Andrew Wells. Fingers crossed that you get it. I know you want snow. Eric P. Seems like the Susquehanna Valley seems to get the brunt of bad weather, high winds, higher snow amounts. Elevation will do it, Eric. You know what? I'll keep all this in mind in my head, and if you're back at 11 o'clock tonight, remind me, and we can, we'll go through this some more. Awesome Gamer, I'm on Fios One News. If you have Fios, I'm on Channel 1 or Channel 501 for Long Island and New Jersey. My colleague Joe Rayo is on in the Hudson Valley. And 9:15 tonight, the Joe and Joe Show on my Facebook page. It's on my Facebook page tonight. Meteorologist Joe Cioffi. And of course, I got a whole slew of website posts to take a look at on meteorologistjoecioffi.com. You can link to all of that from the banner at the top of my YouTube channel. By all means, please do. If you're new to my YouTube channel, thank you for being here. Thank you for spending all this time. If you have, you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. I do at least one live stream a day, and you can get notifications when these live streams go on. Have a great rest of your Thursday evening. Losing track of the days of the week here. Hopefully see you tonight after 11. And again, Facebook, 9:15, The Joe and Joe Show.